How do you start a small business as a rancher in Montana? Well, today I'm interviewing a cowgirl in Montana who did just that. Now, she had a dream of becoming a rancher ever since she was a teenager, and we're going to go through what caused her to have that dream, how she made it a reality, and then what it cost her to get started, all the intricate things of what she did to make a business out of it, and then what her life is like now. Join me on this edition of Life in the West.
How's your day going?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
And I haven't officially met you, but I mean, we're in the same town, so
yeah.
this is Caroline.
Yes, that's me.
And you go by Big Sky Caroline online,
Yeah.
right?
Good. Oh man, is it your ribs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Freak out. Yeah.
So Caroline actually, she does, she's one of the few people that I know that started ranching recently. It's like first generation ranchers, and those are very uncommon. So why did you even get into ranching in the first place?
I have a really unconventional story. My mom took me out here to Townsend on a cattle drive when I was 12. So this was like 20 years ago. I'm 32 now. And I knew that week that I was gonna do this for my life. And I cried the whole way home on the airplane. And then when I was 15, I started working for that same ranch, this same ranch where we are today, for the Rickmeyer family, as a summer ranch hand. And I had no skills, and all I could do really was like clean up after, guests and like do dishes and stuff. So that was mostly what I did. And then they taught me like different ranching things kind of in between. So I slowly became useful over several years.
You want me to get the gate here? We're going through here? Okay, we'll just walk through here. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I was just saying the other day that's what I would think the best way for somebody to get started would be to go to work for somebody so they can learn.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, where it's like you don't have any skills, you're not valuable to anybody, and actually you're kind of a liability.
Well, I'm not sure people understand that necessarily.
No.
So maybe would you touch on that for just a second?
Absolutely.
Like, what people think you can just go jump on a ranch, but you really don't have many skills when you're starting out. From where were you from originally?
Yeah, so I'm from Pennsylvania, and my mom had a horse farm, so I was a rider. And I think a lot of people think like, oh, if I can ride a horse, I'm going to be handy. And I was like the furthest thing from handy. I'm still probably not that handy. Even things like getting in a corral with cattle, like you don't know how to be around them. You don't know how to, like where they can kick you, what they might do when they run by, how to tell they're not bluffing.
Right.
Stuff like that took me years to learn. We can actually go in here. I don't know if you can crawl through with your ribs.
Probably. I just have to go slow with everything.
Careful.
Actually, the worst part is just sleeping. So
Oh my gosh.
that's the
really?
worst part.
Where's my pitchfork? Here we go. Hey, boys. Come here, boys. I'll bed it up.
Are they? So these are your steers, right?
Yeah.
And you're raising these for
beef.
to sell?
Yep. So so I started as a ranch hand, and I did that for like 15 summers. It was a long time. It was maybe 14 summers. And what happened slowly is I went from full-time ranch hand when I was like 25, 26. I did that for a couple years here. And then I became part-time, and I started building my business. So I've been so lucky to work with this amazing family that has like allowed me to grow. And then, okay, you can stay here as long as it works. And they've been really supportive for me to do my own thing as well. So that's super rare. But yeah, it's been amazing. And here I am today. They never got rid of me after that cattle drive.
So, and you were making and they were paying you like tons of money too,
Oh,
right? I mean, as a ranch hand,
Raking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other crazy thing, like I've always been super transparent about this, but like we came into ranching with nothing, like no money, no capital. And basically I was making 15 to 18,000 a year as a ranch hand. And that took every dollar just to live and, pay for your truck and stuff. And so I got a credit card out with a $5,000 line of credit. And that's what I put our first year's expenses on. And it cost me $5,000 to get into business my first year.
To get into business. What kind of business?
Sheep.
Sheep.
We started with sheep.
Okay.
And I think the thing that we've done well is we've looked around and saw, like, what do we have access to? What can we do with what we have? And what I had was a small corral at my house where we live that wasn't really suitable for cattle. It's too small. And we had access to all these odds and ends, like pivot corners on the ranch where there was all this ungrazed grass, wasn't even worth haying it, but it was perfect for sheep. And if I could get a little bit of an electric fence set up, I could graze sheep all summer. And luckily, like my in-laws and, the ranch where I was working, they're like, you can graze this spot, you can graze this spot, and they wanted the sheep to knock down some weeds and I needed to feed them. So it ended up being this way in for us. And, we got our first sheep free. Someone was giving them away. And then they all started lambing and suddenly had, I went from 4 sheep to 10 sheep the first year and 10 sheep to 20 sheep. And now, we have like a pretty good flock. You'll see it. You'll see it later.
Yeah, we'll go.
Yeah.
We're going to see where she keeps her sheep and how many sheep she has. And there's a couple of steers here. And you're raising these to butcher yourself and sell the beef, right?
So we got into cattle then, like once we could afford to, and sticky bale. We immediately went into direct to consumer beef because it was very clear we couldn't even do the margins of a conventional cow-calf operation.
Oh no! What are the? I mean, the margins
Negative
are
$500 a year.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we knew, like, okay. And what ended up happening then is we got into like a work trade situation with the ranch where I had been employed, where they're like, hey, if you want to keep feeding cattle here, you can run some pairs and you can use, you can have this much hay to finish your steers with. And so I was able to say, okay, well, it's a win-win. They get free labor. I get resources I couldn't afford. So that's how we got into the beef business. And then our cattle still run with theirs all summer. They go up into the high country up by Ringling. So yeah, it's amazing. They have like the best life ever. So yeah, we love it.
I bet. I've run horses out of that country, the Battle Creek country.
Yeah, stunning.
In the summer and in the spring, and that is very nasty to run horses out of. I tell you that. That was
it's pretty
scary.
You really can't even, like, you four-wheelers can't even get back in there that well. Yeah.
Yeah, I just about took out my horse going wide open through it and fell in a badger hole.
No way.
Yeah. He didn't fall, which I don't know how he didn't fall, but the whole front end of him just disappeared because it's full of badger holes up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go falls
Oh, yeah.
And rocks and ravines. Yeah, it's
steep country. Yeah.
I just bought a horse this year and it's been funny to watch him transition from kind of more like an arena horse to a ranch horse.
Is he arena horse?
Well, he was.
Yeah.
Now he's ranchy. He's getting it figured out.
And this is mostly grass hay?
Yeah, it is. So that we do a grass finish with light barley ration. So they get barley once a day and we just sprinkle it right on the hay. And we use these bunks because otherwise they poop in their nice hay.
Yeah. They love to use... Cows have no appreciation for what you actually do for them. No, horses don't either.
No.
Or sheep.
No, even less, yeah.
Even less. Because you do all this stuff for them and get them hay and everything, and they use it for a bed and then pee on it and everything. So what she's doing here is making it so they can reach through and get the hay, but not...
And they'll still
they'll pull some of it through.
Yeah, they pull some of it out and we just account for that. We give them the cheap stuff for their bedding.
That's right, the cheaper stuff. And I'll make sure to put the links to all of her stuff down below, her social media and where she's selling her beef and her lamb meat. And do you sell hides too, right?
Yeah, we do sheepskins and they sell like usually overnight or in 2 or 3 days. Like we never have any in stock. It's so crazy. But that's one of the reasons too that we've always done like unconventional breeds and unconventional ways of doing things is I knew these hides were going to be like a high demand item. They just look so cool. So we got a breed that has all these different colors, all these different patterns, and we get them naturally, like organically tanned, and then we sell them as heirloom rugs, and you can hang them on your wall. They look amazing. I love them as I want them in every chair in my house because they're so cozy. So yeah, that's how I use them.
Okay, so I mean, I just met her and I'm just kind of lambasting her with questions, but this is the question. So you started out from the city, so you've now. How much of the process did you understand when leaving the city? Like how cattle are moved through the process and then killed, and how they're, you know, brought to the table, kind of a thing. And how much did it bother you? Did the process bother you? And how much does it bother you now? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so when I came out here as a ranch hand, I didn't understand anything about the cattle business. I thought, so I'd seen all the documentaries, and I'm like, okay, well, these ranches that I'm working on that are raising their cattle on grass, they just must be good, the only good ranches around. The people that are having calves born on feedlots, they must be somewhere else. And I was like, well, it's weird because like everyone I meet's also raising cattle on pasture, feeding them grass. Like that's weird. But I still was like, all right, wow, this county is just full of good ranchers, and the bad ranchers must be somewhere, because like the documentary told me. And then, I mean, it really took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that the cattle, the beef food chain and the supply chain of it always starts on grass, always starts on pasture, always starts on a family ranch, which makes us completely really unique to every other type of protein produced in this country and to really every other type of farm. I mean, we are like pasture-based and family-based in a way that no other meat is at a level like this. So then when we started finishing them ourselves, you know, you get to know these steers and heifers that you're finishing. I mean, it takes almost 3 years, and I calve them out. Like, I know them. But a couple things started to happen. Like, I started to get really plugged in to maybe like what it's like to, like, the cycle of life is really what I would describe it. Like, I would see elk that had a broken leg that were hunted down and eaten by coyotes or wolf. Like, I started to see that this was happening all around me. I would see eagles attack my lambs. And I realized, like, I think people like us who are conscientious, that are very empathetic, are the ones that should be raising livestock. I am who you want taking animals to slaughter. Like, I baby them their whole life. And I actually, that's not true. I am extremely, like, I want a very high level of animal welfare, but I want them to live like how they're supposed to live. So for us, what we go for is that every year we want to add more pasture days. So we have, you know, in Montana, we have challenges, frozen ground, extreme weather, extreme wind. We have all this stuff. And so there's times when our sheep and our cattle are in pens, and they're in a big pen right now. But our goal is, like, every year we add more and more pasture days, and then eventually we will be 100% pasture, except for maybe extreme weather. So I'm really trying to give them as natural of a life as they can have. And so they're not pets to me. I don't want them to be pets. I don't even want them to think of me. I want them to do their ruminant job, eat grass, turn it into fertilizer, build topsoil. Like, that's what I want them to do. And the beef has now become, to me, in my mind, it's a byproduct of what they do best, which is like carbon sequestration and building topsoil. So that's the fun part for me. Like, we're really into rotational grazing and seeing what they can do. That's like my real passion. And to me, yeah, the meat and the sheepskins, all that is a byproduct that pays me to restore soil. Yeah, that's a soundbite.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the thing is people don't understand. I say this all the time, but without making money, right? Without being able to harvest an animal and utilize that for money. If we're just in this for philanthropical reasons, then none of us are here. Because you have to make money, because the enormous amount of time that it takes to actually do this stuff.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to do.
The cattle industry, a lot of people aren't making money.
Well, that's true.
As it is. So I didn't realize that either. I got into it. I'm like, wait, hang on. I'm running the numbers going, are you guys losing money? And everyone's going, yeah. So what I realized is a lot of families in the cattle ranching world are subsidizing their operation with free labor or somebody that works in town to get health insurance. And if they're making money, it's because, you know, they own their land, they own their assets. This really does not pencil out for a first generation person to do it the conventional way. So I've always had to do it different. And I just did a post today. Like, I think that's a blessing. I really do, because it made me be creative, and we do retreats, and we sell like sheep milk soap and all this stuff that we would never have done because we had to. The sheepskins, you know, being one of them. I do like digital stuff. I do coaching. I work with brands, all these things to make it work. And I feel like it's actually been a gift to us. You know, I would never have had to do those things, and I never would have learned all the amazing lessons of doing them and been a true business person, I think, if I had like had a traditional way in. It's been interesting now because we're kind of transitioning from a super scrappy startup ranch business to, you know, like now we're getting some more leases and we're getting a name for ourselves of like, okay, they're not going to screw your place up, you know, you can rent to them. Or so it's been really cool to kind of slowly scale up, and the hard work is finally, you know, paying off. But it, you know, people too, they want to get into ranching and then they're like, how do you get a lease? I want to start tomorrow. And it's like, I don't know, it took us 3-4 years of like talking to people around town, proving ourselves. People know my husband, they know he's not going to screw it up, like he's trustworthy, they feel that I'm trustworthy, you know. I hope, like, relationship building, you know, this stuff takes, I've been in this community now for like almost 15 years from starting from Summers, so it's, this stuff is like, we've been working on this for a long time.
Ranchers are not the most trusting people in the world.
Yeah.
They're very untrusting. And in fact, you have to work on a relationship. You have to really, I don't know how to say that, but it's hard to get a relationship with a rancher to where he trusts you to work on his place even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because he doesn't want, the one thing a rancher does not want is to hire somebody that then that creates more work for him. And what I mean is or her. Sorry. Yes. And because if you hire somebody that then you have to then take the time to train, you got a lot of time into showing this person how to do things that you're actually doing as well.
Yeah, and we found like people will reach out to me during lambing season or when we're gathering cattle in the fall, like, oh, can I come ride with you? Do you need help? Can I come feed lambs? And I'm like, that's the cool stuff. I'm set. Like, I'm good. You know, sure, you can come. Like, if I need help, I'll ask, but I don't need help bottle feeding lambs. That's the best part of my day. Like,
exactly.
You know, I feel like 90% of what we do is not photogenic. And the other thing that it really bothers me is I think behind this idea of, hey, can I come ranch? Hey, can I come like be a cowboy for the summer? I think people don't think this is skilled work. Every time you're working with a horse or you're working with a cow, you're reading what the cow, you're paying attention to the body language of the cow. You're learning how close can I get to this cow? How far away should I be? Sometimes cows are, you know, within 3 feet makes a huge difference of whether you mess the entire thing up or you allow everything to work correctly. I feel like that's the situation when everything happens is like when you're rushing.
Always when you're rushing.
Always.
When you're rushing, it's gonna happen. When you're ranching or horses or anything, and you never realize it until after it's over. Yeah. Then you go, oh shoot.
Yeah, that I can see the dominoes.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna suffer. That's rough. Now I noticed that you started doing social media. Mm-hmm. What was the purpose of you starting social media?
It was a journal for me at first, and it still kind of is. That's one of my favorite things about it. And then
like a journal of what you're accomplishing.
Yeah. And the journey of going from someone who doesn't know anything about anything to someone who knows something about something. Maybe not much.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was like, guys, this is what hay is. This is how hay is different from straw. I just learned, you know, and I was bringing everyone with me. And it's funny because I was talking on the other day on Instagram, like, we used to have so much dramatic stuff happen. And I look back now and I'm like, it's because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, we would have these emergencies all the time. And it made really good, like, Instagram content. But, like, I don't have emergencies anymore. Yeah, so my page is, like, so calm now.
Well, that is not quite like me, apparently. I've been doing this a long time, and I have emergencies all the time, and still, I must really not know what I'm doing now.
No. Definitely still kind of like a digital scrapbook for myself, and it also markets our products. So we've never spent $1 on traditional marketing, and we've grown our business. You know, we double our revenue every year so far, 100% through social media, and we sell beef subscriptions primarily. That's like the biggest thing. And our retreats that we do. So yeah, we market all that through social media. And now I feel like, you know, I'm in a community too of all these women that I've met, that we help each other out. If I have a question, I've got like 10 people I can ask and none of them are local. You know, it's really cool. to just feel like, yeah, I can ask like a shepherd in the UK, like how she solves this hoof issue. So I love that about it.
That is pretty cool. So you're, what do you do for retreats? What are your retreats for?
Yeah, we do retreats for women. So one's called Cowgirl Camp and one's called Shepherd Camp. Shepherd Camp is coming up. It's all lambing. So like they help us lamb, and it is get your hands dirty, nitty gritty. Like here's how you pull a lamb kind of situation. And we never know what they're gonna see. Like it's real. We don't edit it. We don't. Yeah. So that's Shepherd Camp. It's really cool. And then Cowgirl Camp is like we teach them to ride. We take them into Battle Creek, herd some cows if we find some. Truck. We do like a roping workshop. Go to the rodeo. It's really fun. So we try to do retreats that are really authentic, and it's not like a dude ranch experience. So like the team is all real ranchers and cowgirls and shepherdesses, people that are like doing it, and it's really for people that are considering, you know, like maybe changing their life. Like we've had people go on to become ranch hands. That's one of my cows right there, the red one.
See one over there too, the black one.
Oh yeah. Hi, Pinky.
And that's half Charolais? Is that what that is?
Full, actually.
Okay.
But usually we breed them to Angus bulls, so the calves are crosses.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we do, I always try to be really clear about like, we do a work trade situation. So most of these cows are not ours. None of this land is ours. This is a ranch where I do a trade for my work feeding in the winter and calving in exchange for pasture for our cows. So our cows live in this herd. It works out really great. Yeah.
And so if somebody was going to ask you, because you're experienced in this, like how would they get started in ranching? Would you tell them, well, go to the bank and get a loan for $6 million and go buy land and cattle and everything?
Yeah.
Or what would you?
Yeah. I would tell them I think like land should be the last thing you buy. I mean, I really mean that. Like, I think a lot of people have gotten into land and are realizing that this maybe homesteading, ranching life is not for them. It's a lot more work than they realize, or they're not having fun anymore. For us, we have been forced to have a business model that works before we own land. And I know now that it does work, and it allows us to hopefully, save up and get into land someday and be able to replicate that model on that land and scale. But we've been exposed to almost zero risk. Like we didn't take out any loans to do what we did. It's really hard to break in. I would say, people always think they need to come to Montana to work on a ranch. That's not really true. There's farms and ranches everywhere, and you might have a place that you can get experience in your own town. And I would recommend starting there with the network that you already have. A lot of that work's going to translate wherever you go.
Well, actually, I think, on top of that, I actually think there's a lot of places, you can make more money ranching and farming per acre by far than Montana because our winters are so long.
Yeah,
so,
and our grass, we have a lot of arid
ground. We're a desert.
We're high desert, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're in Minnesota or Tennessee or, Texas, you have, Texas may be a little deserty, but you can still run a lot more cattle per acre in those areas. So your costs per head are way lower than here. It's much harder here. You have to have 6,000 acres just to run 400 head of cows.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah, and back where I came from, it's an acre per cow. That'll feed them all summer and fall, and probably like all year long. It's unfathomable to me. Up here in the high country, I think it's like 25 or sometimes in some places 50 acres per cow. Crazy. And that's not really something you can buy into unless you're like independently wealthy. So it's also why we got into rotational grazing, because I was trying to maximize stock density. Like, how can we do the best for the grass so that we can graze more? Mm-hmm. So that really helped us. It made financial sense to do intensive rotational grazing.
I see some sheep tracks right here.
Yeah, we run them in every night and out again in the morning. So.
All right, and why do you do that?
Predators. Yeah, so we do have a guardian dog, but she's with the other flock. This is our breeding flock right now. So
I take it this is not electric.
Not electric. This is
okay.
Different, but they don't know that.
Right, don't tell them, huh? I just came from I went to a buffalo ranch.
Oh, cool.
And their fences are really hot.
These are, so like we've got 2-strand all the way around, and it's pee your pants hot.
Really?
Yeah, it's the only thing that keeps them in, because they're totally bad.
Oh, I'll bet.
Bad.
I'll bet.
Yeah. So there's about 65, 70 ewes. This is our permanent breeding flock for right now. And this is what started as four ewes in 2018.
Started as 4 ewes, huh?
Yeah,
And what kind of sheep are these?
Icelandic sheep.
Icelandic sheep.
Yeah, so they've got all the different color variations. They have a different kind of fleece. It's almost like it's dual coated. Like there's a hair part of it too, so it's just really different than regular wool.
And is this your place here?
Yeah, that's our house, and this is a field next to our house that we've been allowed to graze by our father-in-law. The best, the nicest guy. So this is usually farmed, and this is all volunteer grass that's come up. So the sheep are making use of it.
Okay.
Part is they eat snow, so they don't need a lot of water. And they've got a trough of water in there that's thawed that they haven't touched in about a week because they're out here preferring to eat snow. So
right.
they're tough. I love that about them. They
And
don't get cold. They don't need much. They don't.
Right.
Yeah, they're not like other breeds of sheep where they kind of keel over easily.
Yeah, there's a lot of dislike among ranchers for certain breeds of sheep, because what they used to have here is sheep. They would you'd look at them and they'd die. I mean, they were very, very non-hardy animals, wouldn't you say?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's always the stereotype. And I think there's a stereotype about sheep ranchers, like we're soft or something. And I'm kind of like, hey, pound for pound, they're more profitable than the cattle, like by far. And kind of like, all right, you guys can say what you want about sheep. Like they really, our whole business has been built on sheep. And you've got the wool, you've got meat. They can do really great like weed management. So we're starting to get into that where people will hire them to come knock down whatever invasives they've got. And you don't need any infrastructure for them. So that's what's great. I mean, we don't have a barn. We don't have anything.
How do you lamb out here?
Yeah, they'll lamb in the corrals. We'll put a lot of bedding out. And we have a little windbreak with like 6 stalls that we'll put the brand new lambs in.
Yeah, because lambing is isn't lambing more intense than calving? I mean, they need a lot of help right off the bat.
These guys, they're tough though. They're born tough. They spring up. They're
really way tougher than
way tougher. Way tougher. Our mortality is way lower than a regular sheep flock, just because of the breed. They're built to survive extreme temperatures, and they're more of a heritage breed. They haven't been improved as much, so they have that more like, historical toughness that they would have in the wild.
Unlike that one right there, because that is the original type of sheep right there, the one I'm familiar with.
One of these things is not like the other.
That's right. I see that. Do you lose any to predators?
We haven't lost a single one since we got our guard dog. If I left him out here all night, I think eventually coyotes might get smart. Our guard dog's up the road with the rams and the ram lambs. Yeah, she does a really good job. But before that, we would lose a couple every summer at least. We're protected here. We're kind of in a valley, so the coyotes don't like the open country like this. But the biggest concern is people's pet dogs. So it's not even coyotes really. And I'm kind of like the mean woman of Nelson Road. Like when I see people run their dogs here, I'm like, get them out of here.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they will. I mean, bigger domestic dogs will kill sheep
without even
for the fun of it,
yeah.
Just for the heck of it. Just
they'll chase them around and stress them out so bad that they'll die, or they'll just bite them on the neck and it'll kill them. And there's, you can't do stitches on dog bites like that.
Fine.
So what's really great about sheep, and here's why they're great for like a first ranching animal, is you can like gestate and then raise that whole lamb and butcher it in a year. So you get a return on your investment in basically like 12 or 14 months. Whereas cattle, like we talked about earlier, it's like 3 years.
Yeah, that's a lot different. I mean, a lot different. Obviously, you're not dealing with the amount of meat, but you're able to move through it in a year instead of way more than that. So
yeah, they mature really fast. So our rams are butcher size, 6 to 8 months on average, and they're mature at 6 to 8 months. So they can breed like for the first time at that age. So you're just like, it's just faster. All of it's faster. I had to toughen up a lot to get through the first couple winters. My first winter here full time was like a historic. It was that one where we had like -40 for like a week in March and we were calving. It was intense and I wasn't physically ready for it. Like my body hadn't adjusted. Yeah, it's intense. I didn't know that fuel could freeze up in your vehicle. Like new concepts to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now I'm like such a mountain person, and I want to die like with the same backdrop looking over my sheep herd. Like it's just in my skin now, or under my skin, and yeah, it's not gonna let me go. Yeah.
I've had lamb like once in my
Yeah,
life.
you
So
haven't had this lamb.
is this different?
Yeah, it's different.
Why is it different?
I don't know. It's just like the best lamb you'll ever have, and that is widely, like, I hear that all the time. It's the breed, I think, and they don't. They're 100% grass fed because this breed is not bred to really have much grain or have many seeds. Like that's not what their rumens are built to do. So they're 100% grass fed, and it is unbelievable. I've converted so many beef lovers to lamb lovers, and our lamb is like the thing that sells out the fastest. Like we never have any in stock. It's like twice a year we
Really?
restock it. Yeah.
So how do you cook the lamb? I mean, how do you cook it?
Than beef. Quick
Really?
sear. Yeah, cast iron pan, salt and pepper for the chops. Roast, it's the same, like red wine, garlic, just like a chuck roast. Yeah, I'm a total convert. We eat lamb all the time. I'll look at my flock of like ram lambs, the butcher ones, I'm like hungry. Look, I know it sounds crazy.
You actually understand the process
Yeah.
where your food comes from.
Yeah.
If you look at a lamb and you're hungry, you look at a live animal and you go, "Whoo, that is gonna be good." But people have like this something against ranchers killing animals, but are okay with wolves, which I feel wolves. And the reason I bring that up is because wolves they'll target the weak. So in the spring, they'll kill like a huge number of the calves and lambs, or calves and what do the babies call the deer? Fawns.
Yeah.
of the deer and elk herds. And it's like you really have to get it right in your mind that you're not actually that's the way of life. But we try not to do that as humans.
We feel like we're exempt from the circle of life, and I think that is like fairly accurate now when everything feels like it comes from the grocery store and then it just almost comes from nowhere. And I think we think of nature, I call it like the Disneyfication of nature. You know, most of us don't get the opportunity to see the brutality of nature. Like I no longer think of nature as this soft and fuzzy things. I think of it as this like brute force thing that can be beautiful and can be horrible, and it's just nature doesn't care like about your feelings. And oh hi, this is Yoko Shida for anyone.
Yes, she is. She's gonna come right up and say hi.
Hi.
Yes.
This is a bottle baby.
Oh.
So I got to present an Emmy award.
Really?
virtual
Oh, that's
Emmy
right.
during the 2020, and she was in it. She stood there the whole time.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's
Yes,
good.
Yoko.
And you got little tags in their ears here?
Yep, it's like a USDA requirement, kind of like a Banks tag
Oh, okay.
for cattle, huh?
Or because they're vaccinated for something specific,
It's a
or
scrapie. There's no vaccination for the scrapie disease, but it's a tracking system where you can't remove this. So if I sell her, she keeps the same tag. So if an outbreak of scrapie happens, you can trace it back to the origin herd.
I see.
But it's basically eradicated the disease, so it's not really much of an issue here, huh? She
Yeah.
likes her brisket scratch.
Mhm.
So up close, like you can really see the fleece. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna. Do you want scratchies? You're gonna have to come back. You're gonna have to. Tempting. When you touch them, like you can see it on my hands. There's lanolin. That's the oil that's in the fleece. So, lanolin's in a lot of like self-care products, and people think it's like the animal was killed, for the lanolin. This is a natural byproduct of wool. The wool is shorn off. You clean the wool and you can extract the lanolin without killing the sheep. So wool and lanolin are both, in my opinion, vegetarian products. I mean, they come from animals, but it's like honey. It's a byproduct.
Right.
Nothing died for it.
If you start ranching, how should you expect to live? I think a lot of people think that they can get into ranching and still live like they do in the city. And they don't understand that the amount of work and the amount of money that you put into it actually dictates how you live. So to start ranching or farming, or whatever you want to call this, let's say ranching, farming, homesteading, anything, it's going to be a sacrifice in a way.
It is.
How different is it for you from the way you grew up?
So I grew up like super privileged. We were upper middle class, and I lived like on Easy Street, and things happened and that changed. And so when I graduated college, I was very much like, on my own, supporting myself. And I was a musician for a couple years. So I think of that time as such a gift because I learned how to be broke and I learned how to get by on, below poverty line income. And when I came into ranching, I was like, I can do this. Like I could survive on a ranch hand wage, and I built a business on a ranch hand wage because it was all I had known as an adult. But I think a lot of people get into ranching and they want the trappings. They go get the big F-350 right away. And that is such a pet peeve of mine. Like my daily driver truck is a 2-wheel drive 2002 F-250 POS, like single cab. It looks like it's worse than all the juniors in high school that they drive around that they get from their parents. But I'm like, I'm not putting 50 grand in a vehicle. Like this is, and it's this backwards mindset of like, oh, we want to look like a rancher. We want to impress people. Like my husband and I, we spent years, we had no loader, no heavy equipment of any kind to do anything. We just bought a tractor and it's from the 70s. I think it's like, maybe it's 1969 or 1971 or something. And it cost us 10 grand and we paid for it in cash. Like we do this without debt, without loans as much as we can. And we live like very, very, very simply. So I think, and we don't really take days off. I mean, we've been lucky. We have help that can come take care of the sheep for the occasional getaway. But you don't ever stop being a rancher. You can't be like, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're not going to leave the sheep and say, oh, well, stay here.
All right, you'll be good. I am trying to build in more systems though, so that I can have a life. So whether that's like, whether it's like bale grazing, we're doing like dropping big bales and we're feeding a week at a time up in the pasture, and we're using that to put organic matter on our soil and decrease my labor. So we're trying to build some things in so that it's not this like everyday same amount of work every day. But something could happen at any time. And that's the thing, like they could all escape. I can't go far.
Right.
So yeah, that part's tough. I rarely see my friends from my old life. I rarely get to go home. But I know this is what I want. And I think a lot of people have gotten down this road in the last couple of years after the pandemic. And they're like, I want to change my life. And then I hear from them in my DMs like, oh, do you guys just never go on vacation? And I'm like, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Like, that's part of it. So it can be hard. And I try to make sure that like I'm filling my cup and doing the things that I need to do so that I don't go stir crazy and get cabin fever out here.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point, because I think the trappings is what people see. Yeah. They see the riding horses, and they see, they don't see the building the fence all the time and mucking things and
manure management.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
And putting up hay and all that kind of stuff. And they see, the ranchers driving the pickup and having the nice things, but they don't realize that those ranchers that do have those nice things have been in business for 40 years,
right.
And they usually inherited land and they've been in business for 40 years. So they earned that stuff.
We wake up in the morning and we don't have the stress of an operating loan, right now. And I'm not saying it's bad to do those things, but I want to do those things when it really counts, to get into land, to get into stuff that will build equity, not that's going to depreciate in the driveway and just be a status symbol. So I'm very much against the big souped up trucks. We have a nice truck, but that's because my husband did a stint on the oil rigs.
Uh-huh.
That's all he has to show for it.
Hey, you got to go away to make money to come back to do this. How did you learn to manage money? Did school teach you how to manage money? Because it didn't teach me.
It didn't teach me anything useful, really. I majored in anthropology, so I can tell you a lot about Neanderthals. But well, that's the good thing about not taking out loans. It's like, okay, we got $5 grand in the bank account. That's what we can spend. Like, we better figure this out for cheap. My husband's amazing at figuring anything out. Like, we live on part of the farm that we get to live here in exchange for the work that he does on the farm. And we've pulled stuff out of the dirt and repaired it and welded it and worked on it and made, sheds for the sheep, things like that. I mean, we spend $0 when we do stuff. I've gotten stuff out of the dump. So I don't know. Now we're in a place where we have a thriving business, and I try to be so like we've started paying ourselves a very modest amount, but I want to make sure, to me, we're not profitable really unless we are earning a living in our business. And I'm not going to subsidize this business with my labor and call it successful. But I've done a ton of education in ranching as I go. So I invest in, like, there's so many affordable seminars that so many organizations put on. I am on every email list. I go to everything. When I couldn't afford to attend, I would ask for scholarships. I would get them most of the time. I've done some ranching for profit seminars, which truly have like changed my life and changed how I run numbers and do business. I did the 5 Marys shipping course to figure out how to learn to ship my beef. That was huge. Really accelerated us. And I've done social media like workshops. And I am not afraid to spend money to reinvest in my education. That's one thing where I'm like, I don't sacrifice.
That's the great part about, I think, today's world is you don't have to go take 17 general courses that don't teach you anything.
Right.
To get the one that you need. You can just go on and find seminars and courses that you can pay for that teach you exactly what you need to know.
And, you know, I have friends that are doing ranch management at school and doing all kinds of really amazing, you know, ag degrees. And I wish I had their knowledge, but at the same time, I feel like I'm learning the same lesson and building a business. So I don't feel like I'm missing out, you know, too much. But there's things where I'm like, would have been good to know that about a year ago. I have made some mistakes for sure.
Well, I think everybody has.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that we probably don't understand as well as somebody who's been in college is like how the markets work. And that's something you can delve into online too. Like how the markets work, how the world markets affect prices. Because when you, as you well know, you know, you can spend 3 years raising a steer and then end up with that year being a very low year.
Yeah, you could lose all your money. And that's another reason where I'm like, I don't want to do conventional. I don't want the market to determine how much money I'm going to make. And it cuts both ways where on one hand, we're often more expensive than the grocery store. But when beef went super high, we never raised our prices because our inputs stayed very similarly the same. And we did not pass on more cost to customers because we didn't have more cost. So I'm like, actually, our ground beef's starting to look pretty cheap, you know, compared to other places. So I really value, and we're trying to be super like vertically integrated so that we control as much of the process as we can. So we ship everything ourselves. We have a very tight relationship with our butcher. Everything has a backup on a backup on a backup, like just to make sure that we can always, anyway, I'm riffing now, but like we're vulnerable to things like UPS shipping delays. Like a weather delay could take out an entire plane of boxes. So we're always trying to think strategically of how can we insulate ourselves from risk in such a weird economy and a weird time to have a business.
There's a lot of people I think are getting to the point that raise beef. They're getting to the point now where they understand that they could make more money cutting out the middleman by raising that beef to maturity, finishing it themselves, and then selling it. The problem is nobody knows how to market.
Yeah.
So
and also it's a tremendous undertaking to do that marketing and to lay the groundwork for an audience that wants to buy from you. Like I was doing that years before I knew what I was doing. And I happen to love sharing. And a lot of people that are really good at raising beef don't like to share.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the piece that it looks easy when other people are doing it, but it's not something I recommend people do unless they're willing to devote a lot of time to marketing and brand building.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time and you got to learn a whole nother thing. I mean,
we run the website. Like half of what I do in a day is digital work now. We're doing a whole website revamp. I'm fighting with UPS about negotiated rates. Like so much of what I do is in the house. And in some ways that bums me out because direct to consumer business has actually taken me away from ranching like half the day. But it's okay.
Well, but you have to make money too.
Right.
I mean, that's the trade-off is if you don't do that, then you're back to conventional, which doesn't make enough money to make it pay. So then you can't do it.
Like, so for comparison, if I took these to auction because they're not a conventional breed, they would bring me 80 or 90 bucks a piece. Our return on the lambs, to be totally transparent, if everything goes well and we sell the beef or the lamb and we sell the sheepskin and all the things, we're getting $400 to $500 in the green per lamb that comes off of you, and a ewe might have 2 lambs. I can, the return on these guys is amazing, but in the marketplace, they're worthless.
Right.
You can't make $1 off them. So yeah, it's something to think about.
It is.
Yeah, but I take all the risk,
You
so
take all the risk. That's right.
We've had all of our sheepskins that were salted and cured get rained on and destroyed. And that was all my profit for the whole year get wiped out. So it's like, it can go really well or it can go really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you have land to pay for it and all your profit gets wiped out, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, then you're in trouble. And that's where I'm glad we don't have a mortgage yet. Of course, we're vulnerable. Like, we could get kicked off our lease and have to figure it out. There's all kinds of stress things that keep me up at night. But yeah, one day at a time, really.
Exactly. I appreciate you doing this. I think people would be really interested in how you do get started. Some of the challenges that you have to endure to make it work, when you're starting out, and that it's possible.
Yeah.
In today's world.
It is possible.
But not the way that becoming a land baron, I think, is out. Unless you're a millionaire or you were born 150 years ago.
And I think it's super important to separate the desire from I want to own a ranch versus I want to ranch. And once I got that distinction clear in my mind, I was very happy with the way we were doing it. And I didn't let imposter syndrome get to me, but so many people want to own a ranch. And that's different.
That's different. You're better off going and getting a job in Wall Street so you can make millions.
That's right.
So you can buy the ranch. If you want the ranch part of it, that's...
Yeah. But we frown on that because you're driving land prices up for the rest of us.
That's right. No good answers here. We just have no good answers. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Absolutely.